Do you worry as a business owner or executive? Do you worry and does it get in the way of your daily life? Well, the answer for most people is yes. They worry. And today we're going to talk about how to stop worrying and start living. This is very important. The things you worry about need action. I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations, and many people come to me after they've worried for a period of time, and now they're desperate for a solution. They're frustrated, they're ready to do something, and I'm not saying it's too late. I'm just saying it would have been easier if we just recorded this podcast for them years ago and they could have got started right away. The key thing to understand is that worrying, what you worry about, is necessary for you to address with your attention. Now, the problem is sometimes we have the wrong kind of attention and it creates anxiety, it creates frustration, and there's actually more than 7 million people in the United States impacted by general anxiety disorder. Some people have anxiety because they believe they have anxiety, but other people have legitimate diagnosed anxiety disorder. And if that's the case, then you may need help otherwise. But the key thing is there are 330 million people in the United States. So 7 million people are not that many people. And if they get the help they need, they'll really be okay. But the key point I'm talking about here is that you're going into a meeting and you're worried about what you're going to learn in the meeting. So you have to lay off some people. You're worried about the how they're going to think, what they're going to think of you, what they're going to think of the company. You're worried about the reputational risk. You're going into a meeting and something isn't right, and you need to. You're a little concerned and frustrated. What I'm going to talk about here is the mental trigger of worry being switched over to an approach for action. Now, this does work in the anxiety world if you have actually clinically diagnosed anxiety. But again, I'm not your psychologist, therapist, or otherwise. I'm a business productivity person who talks about how we use our brains to accomplish more and to get better results in business. So when you worry, it's okay to worry. You're worried about something. In fact, there's whole cultures that worry all the time. But you're worrying about something. Here's the exercise you're going to take. You're going to have a notebook or some kind of physical note-taking device. A lot of people carry diaries. I know it's trendy and it's been popular to use these electronic devices to work, but most of the senior level executives I know of all kinds of age groups have some kind of engineering notebook. They have some kind of thing they can write down, because what happens when something is in your brain and it's abstract and you take a pen or a pencil and you write it down on paper, suddenly that thing is really small and just kind of manageable because it's just a paragraph on a piece of paper. It can't hurt you now. Serena Williams, the tennis player, I understand when she's frustrated or worried before she plays a tennis match, she grabs a piece of paper, writes on the paper everything she's worried about, and then crumbles it up and throws it in the trash on the way to the tennis match. And what that does for her is it says, I'm going to let this go until after the match. So when it's game time, having this particular strategy of writing down your worries, frustrations, and concerns gives you control back. So now instead of having the worry, you can start living. You can start doing the things that you want to do. So you're noticing the triggers that cause you to worry. It could be a physical reaction. It could be a stomach upset. It could be your hands are sweating. You're frustrated. You just don't. You're cloudy. Create clarity. Write down the particular item that you're worried about because it needs to be addressed. The worry is a response to your brain saying, or your subconscious mind saying, there's something we need to address. Now, again, if it's an irrational worry and it's messing up your day to day life. Now, what is an irrational worry versus like a regular worry? So, for example, if you're in a tall building and you're worried about a plane crashing into the building because you saw it happen before, and it is a probability of it, albeit a very small probability. And this impacts your ability to have a day-to-day life or to work on a building with more than 4 floors, and that's interrupting your finances. That could be irrational, could be entirely legitimate, but you're going to work with somebody on that. But if the worry are these small worries, and I'm arguing that these small worries can be debilitating because they get in the way of your ability to think. If you don't interrupt these worrying thoughts, capture them on a piece of paper, because again, once they're on paper, they're not as they're just it's just a list now. Everybody's got lists. Of course, everybody's got problems and worries, but again, we want to stop worrying and start living. So by putting it in your notebook, you'll know where the worry is to come back to it. In the book Psycho Cybernetics, they have these mailboxes in your mind where you're going to just put it in a pigeon at a cubby hole and close the door, put a lock on it, put the key in your pocket, and then when you want to worry again, you can take it back out. Because again, the worry is something you should be thankful for. I know it seems like worry gets in the way, but I have some Jewish friends that worry all the time. They're like, oh, it's going to be rainy outside, it's going to be horrible. But their response to it is to prepare. If it's going to rain, they bring an umbrella. They don't hide in their house, they take an umbrella. Now, it was explained to me that this is a cultural thing, and I don't quite understand it, but ultimately, my point being is the worry isn't the problem. What the problem is how you respond to the worry. So, for some people, they notice the trigger, they address it with an interruption by writing it down, for example, and then some, which this is a very valuable thing, turn to a positive passage, a message, a Bible verse, a poem. Day by day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. You know, you wake up in the morning, you got some aches and pains. You address it because look, you could have a medical issue. It's possible. The heart's all palpitating. Oh my Lord, I think I'm going to have a heart attack. You know, you can address it, and then you can be thankful that your mind and your body was clear enough to raise this worry to you. Now that it's on paper, you can open that same booklet up for an inspirational quote, a happy song. There's an Eminem song that's talking about his hands are sweaty, you know, he's getting engaged. Use that worry to build up the energy to do what is necessary. See, the time you take to worry takes away from the actual things that need to get done. I've heard people tell me that, you know, you can worry tomorrow. So we write it down, put the worry in the back of our mind, put it in an envelope and put it aside, and then we can always take it out later. Right now, you need to close the sale. Right now, you need to solve the problem in business. Right now, you need to do what you've been hired to do. And this works whether you're public speaking, whether you're in an executive meeting, whether you have an imposter syndrome where you've had success in life. Many of my clients are extremely successful. Now, you might not think you're extremely successful, but if you're making an above average income and you're living in a free country, you're pretty successful on the world market. Now, you might be concerned or worried or frustrated, and we can use different framing. You don't have to call it a worry. You don't have to say something gives you anxiety. You can simply have a legitimate concern. Even illegitimate concerns, you can write them down, and you'll sometimes write them down on paper and say, well, that's ridiculous. My point being is that once you've written it down, that's the interruption. You've started kind of feed your mind something positive, something refreshing, review some of the successes. You're going into a meeting where everybody's worried and frustrated and concerned about the economy, for example. If you go through a quick summary, because you may need to help other people with these, because we don't want panic, we don't want anxiety, we don't want the depression that comes with worry. So you open the meeting with, hey, let's go over a few of our successes. I know a lot of folks don't want this, you know, the senior level person coming in here, but look, we've got a few successes that we want to build on. And in order to build on that success, we acknowledge the success, but we need to also acknowledge the problems. And then you pick a few problems and then you approach problems. So you know this technique. You already know how this works because the next thing you're going to do is to make a plan. Now, this worry list for some clients, they'll fax me their worry list because we'll work on some strategic consulting and we'll go over the worry list to create this plan. But what they've done is they crossed off the things that don't need to be addressed. There are some things that we worry about. Like every time I get on a plane, I want that plane to be in good working order. So when I'm out there, I'm looking at the plane. If there's a dude kicking the tires or there's something just doesn't look right, I'll be nervous. Okay. But again, I'm not going to let it interrupt a flight that I maybe planned work to do, or I have other things going on, or I'm even just going to take a nap. So again, we take out that list, and then maybe once a week, we go and address those worries. Now, understand these worries are anxiety related, they're fear related, they're pressure from the outside world, they're pressure from your inside world. When you pull that list out, there may be a little bit of anxiety. However, when you read it, because remember, when it's in your head, it's unlimited. But when it's on paper, it's very limited. And you might be looking at it and saying, "Oh, well, I've got to record a podcast today so that we can, help my subscribers solve problems. What are we going to have a topic?" You can immediately go to the tools that help solve that problem. So you can either make a plan for large problems, because there could be, bankruptcy and financial disaster. Or you create a plan. In the case of working with a lot of clients, we have the disaster marketing plan because a lot of my clients are on the East Coast of the United States. And every August, there's a hurricane. And many of their clients get wiped out during hurricanes, and it just causes a lot of trouble. So if you're a services provider and your client business goes out of business, it's worrisome. So we developed the hurricane marketing plan that puts in place an emergency and disaster recovery plan. A lot of my clients have electrical services, technology services, so it's appropriate. If the power goes out on on a plant like a cold storage facility, what's the recovery plan? Well, we plug that recovery plan into a sales process and we help the customer solve the problems before they have them so that the customer doesn't have to worry. Do you see how powerful this is? Now, for not everything on your list, but after you've prioritized your list of worries about which things you're going to address, some of these worries are actual risks that we need to address with controls in the business. Some of these worries are associated with projects, so you can move that worry into a project plan. You then can decide what things you're actually going to worry about. Okay, so I know I kind of threw away the value of a lot of worry, and I said you don't really need to worry, and instead you can do something else. But there are worries related to maybe your children, to your personal relationships, to your long term goals and objectives. Maybe you don't feel like you're really moving forward as fast as you want. Those things are on a list that will now become projects. So they're going to be something that you're going to set aside. And if that worry keeps coming up, you're going to have specific actions you take to address those worries. So they can be put into a file cabinet. And then when you worry about it again, you maybe write down a little bit more and stick it in the file cabinet. But then you're going to have a defined space on the calendar to go address those things. Now, the opposite of that is things that you're not even going to bother to worry about. They're going to come up in your mind. You're not even going to write them down. Old age for one. We're all getting older. And so when you have that old age worry, you again pattern interrupt, say something positive, but you don't need a plan for old age. We're all getting old. It's just going to happen. Again, put that energy into exercise, put that energy into strong quality relationships, put that energy into healthy food. There are other places to put that energy so you can throw that away. So the things you're going to worry about and take action are tied to plans, they're tied to projects, they're tied to specific activities, and you take them out when you're working on those activities. But then again, there's some things that are gone. Now, the final thing is sometimes hard for people to do because I know you're a busy business owner or executive, you're a high income professional, you've got a lot of demands, but I constantly am encouraging my clients to do so is to just simply unplug and walk away. I had a serious discussion with a supervisor who asked me, "Hey, I was going to be on vacation for 2 weeks." And they said, "Hey, that's a long time. While you're out, how do we contact you?" And I said, "You can't." And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I'm going to be doing stuff outside. I'll be out. I'm just not going to be available." "Well, what are you going to be doing?" "Well, this doesn't matter. I'm not available. I'm taking vacation. I'll be gone for 2 weeks. Here are the people who are going to cover me." And they were frustrated. They were concerned. They even went as far, and this wasn't a very good manager, but they even went as far, and this is a director level person, by the way, as saying to me, "Well, if nothing happens while you're out," because I assured them nothing was going to happen, I set up stuff. They said, "Well, then we probably don't need you." Because see, what they were doing. I know all the psychological tactics. This is not a very good tactic, but what they were doing is trying to put pressure on me to give them a cell phone number or to give them some minor commitment so they can call me back in. That is going to compound in frustration. It's going to burn you out. It is not necessary. The key here is do things in your life that brings joy. Start small. Meditation, good sleep, good quality sit down dinner with your family. Something simple like that that is going to. Oh, we just had a power. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here. We're having power problems here. I want to make sure this records. But just do something simple. That's the call to action here. Write down your worry, pattern interrupt your worry, refocus your attention, take that time to get results, and then ultimately recharge, refresh, and grow. If you have questions about what I've covered here today, and you want specific help for your situation, again, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist. I can't help you address PTSD or even diagnose it or your anxiety. And I don't mean to make light of this, but I've had situations where I've worried so much that I've had breakdown in a sense. I had rash on me. I was worried so much. I had to learn how to stop worrying and start living. And I hope what I've shared with you today gets you started on the journey of recovery. These small worries add up. These small worries cause problems. Even imposter syndrome can be addressed with this method we've shared today. So if you have your success stories and questions, please visit me at www.insidestrategicrelations.com, where you can ask your questions. You can join our newsletter, and we have private coaching for business owners and executives who want peak performance, who want better results, who want to live more and have more control over their life. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next podcast.